Emory Hunt in studio, the two-time Super Bowl champ in black and yellow. Our guy Bryant McFadden joining the conversation as well. Visions of pain on the face. So I will go to the resident Steeler here first, Mac. I want you to talk about the Patriots first and foremost. We go winner first here. What was different about this effort out of the Patriots as opposed to last week, week before that, week before that? I mean, quarterback change. Bailey Zappi, we saw him a week ago, but he changed week over. Where did you see the biggest difference in the winning side tonight?
The sense of urgency from their offense, the sense of urgency from Bailey Zappi. They got off to a real fast start. That provided a sense of cushion for them within this ball game, especially in the first half. Remember, this was an offense that was only scoring 12 points in the National Football League, dead last. They had 21 points at halftime. 21 points at halftime. So that provided a sense of comfort, something they haven't had the luxury of having the entire season. And, of course, we saw the interception on a deflected pass. But outside of that, he played pretty clean football. He actually was more efficient than the opposing quarterback in Mitch Trubisky, and their defense just did what their defense has done the entire season. You know, making plays, you know, making things difficult in the back end in regards to the pass catchers from the Steelers. And they just was able to execute and perform, put forth a four-quarter ball game that led to this huge big-time win for their team.
Emory, at this point in the season, 3 wins for the Patriots. It's not going to be anything to write home about, but like we said at halftime, guys on that roster playing for jobs, trying to put tape down. You're down 2 of your top wide receivers. You're down your top running back. How did Bailey Zappi, Bill O'Brien, Bill Belichick put together a winning formula here on the road?
One, pride still matters. And you talked about that, where guys were good in college, obviously going to be still good in the pros. And how about this? Bill O'Brien, Zeke the pass catcher. Ezekiel Elliott in the passing game was the biggest difference, in my opinion. I think he was an MVP for this offense. Pittsburgh had no answers for him out of the flat, no answers for him in the screen game. Zappi was able to get the ball out of his hands pretty quickly, which allowed their offense to sustain drives. But I keep coming back to pride. Pride on both sides of the ball. D-Mac touched on it. The defense was where it needed to be, as always has it been all season. And offensively, getting the ball out of his hands quickly. Zeke in the passing game, making plays without the football, which shows you how much you love the game and love your teammates. How about him running down an interception? The guy that picked off the ball for Pittsburgh, running him down, and Pittsburgh didn't really get points off that turnover. So Zeke, to me, played the best game of the season, which is why they got the win.
Big-time fantasy points for fantasy managers who streamed Zeke here in the final week of the fantasy season. I want to pull up something that B-Mac said pregame, because the man speaks nothing but truth. He said, if you can't beat Bailey Zappi, you do not deserve it. Rip up the playoff future tickets. This is a big knock to that effort, Mac. How big of a turning point is this in your eyes? Can the Steelers rebound from something like this?
It's a huge turning point, because it takes any confidence that you still had from losing to a 2-win team a week ago away. Because for the second straight week, you faced off against a 2-win team at home, and you lost. You lost. You lost to the Arizona Cardinals, even though Kyler Murray was back. They were playing bad football. In comes Bailey Zappi, a bad offense, only averaging 12 points. You lost to them as well. Now you look at the remaining 4 ball games. You have no room for error. So just think about the missed opportunities for the Pittsburgh Steelers. If they would have won last week, they're 8-4. They're right there in the thick of things, not to mention you're 1 game behind the Baltimore Ravens with another winnable game coming up Thursday night against the Pats. So now you look at the squandered missed opportunities. You lost to Arizona. You lost to the Patriots tonight. You have the Colts coming up, Gardner Minshew. But at this point, it's almost like it doesn't matter who the quarterback is or how much experience or the lack thereof that quarterback has. They have a favorable matchup. The Steelers defensively, they're dealing with too many injuries, especially to the core of their unit, the inside linebacker position, and they're having issues there. Not to mention the offense. Well, they've just been the offense. They haven't had a pulse. Outside of Cincinnati, that game, you know, since then, we haven't seen anything to make us believe they can hit the switch. So me personally, as I stated earlier in the pregame show, you lose to the Patriots and Bailey Zappi, I don't see you getting in the playoffs. You still, mathematically, you still have a shot, right? But until I see otherwise from what I saw tonight and last week, what makes you believe or think they can get into the playoffs?
Yeah, here's the thing. They have to go 2-2 in these next 4 games if they want to have a chance in the playoffs. That means you have to beat the Colts and also beat the Bengals, both backup quarterbacks. But to B-Mac's point, they haven't done well against the backups. And despite the injuries, I still feel like the defense has been game, has been ready. But what we've seen the last couple of weeks, both teams have decided to take away the run game and force Mr. Trubisky to beat them throwing the football. And they put it all on his shoulders tonight, and he couldn't answer the call. So they have to get more efficiency out of him. They have to get more dynamic plays out of him. And you start to see that permeate throughout the rest of the receiving core. Guys just not hustling out there, going for the pass or breaking through contact, fighting for the route. You saw that on a deep ball to Deontay Johnson. He has to play better, and without a run game, they put the ball in his hands, and he just couldn't answer. So that's the biggest question. That's the biggest issue right now. But if they want to make the postseason, it's going to have to be a 2-2 effort the rest of the way in order for them to have a shot.
Mac, you said something interesting there, and I think it might be worth delving into a little bit further. You said it doesn't matter who plays quarterback. If all your rostered quarterbacks don't have what it takes to move this team at least into playoff contention, where they are right now, but then be effective within playoff contention and maybe be even effective in the postseason, what do you do at quarterback? It's a question that's going to be posed this offseason of 2/3 of the league. How do you answer that question right now?
Well, one thing I know about football, Joe, Emery, I don't care what level. If you don't have quarterback play, you're not going to win a lot of ball games. And we saw that tonight, right? Bailey Zappi outplayed Mitchell Trubisky. I don't know exactly how long it's going to be before we see Kenny Pickett, but I don't think Mitchell Trubisky is the answer in regards to trying to keep this ship afloat without their star quarterback. I said during the pregame show, I wonder how long or short the leash is with Trubisky, because we don't know how Mason Rudolph looks in a Steelers uniform in 2023 in a meaningful game. But the unknown, it seems to be more appealing than what we know from Mitchell Trubisky. So I'm okay, and let's go, man. And we need a spark. You have to find a way to create a spark, and the Steelers don't have that. It's the same episode. It has been the same episode. And then to answer your question, what do you do at the quarterback position? You got to find an answer. And we really won't get a great understanding of how Kenny Pickett is not being under Matt Canada, because we only saw him without Matt Canada for 1.5 games, basically. The Cincinnati game, and then not even a half, right? He played the first quarter against Arizona, and then he went out with the injury. So now you're still in that like, I don't know, mode mentality about who Kenny Pickett is. But regardless, with him or without him, the offense has been stagnant. It's been a car with 3 flat tires. Hasn't been going anywhere.
And that is the hope that we hold out for the teams that we love. We want our guys to succeed. Kenny Pickett being Pittsburgh's guy right now. Is this outcome, is this game contested any differently if Kenny Pickett is the quarterback? Like, how big is that drop-off from number 1 on the depth chart to what we saw here from number 2? And maybe that is more indicative of how you feel about Kenny Pickett.
B-Mac is like this when they switched from light-skinned or dark-skinned Aunt Viv to light-skinned Aunt Viv. It's still Aunt Viv, right? Nothing changes with the role, right? So you can go from Pickett to Rudolph to Blitzen, whoever you want to go to, it doesn't matter for Pittsburgh. So they're going to have to go into the offseason and answer that question at quarterback, because no matter who you have, and the reason why I feel like they went with Trubisky is because they were gambling on his athleticism, like, hey, at least he can create. Well, he didn't really do much of that outside of the first couple of series. So you might as well go with Mason Rudolph, but at the end of the day, it's still Aunt Viv that we're talking about.
Let's talk about the playoff picture right now. I think we're going to throw that up. We did sort of explore how we feel about these Pittsburgh Steelers and their playoff hopes. You're talking about a team on the other side that didn't even make the graphic. A 3rd win here for the Patriots. That's worth no exploration. We've already gotten our answer here from B-Mac. So maybe let's talk about the head coaches, because it was stark to me sitting there watching the broadcast cut away to 2 of the greatest head coaches in the history of the sport, having to try and get something out of these 2 rosters. Emery, I'm not going to ask you who's closer to success, because it's so far for both of these teams, or so it appears. What did you make of that coaching matchup that we've so looked forward to in the past, and tonight just try to see who didn't make the biggest mistake?
Well, you have to like both coaches, because Bill Belichick had his team respond great after getting shut out badly at home, and Mike Tomlin had his team fight through adversity and come back in a game in which they were down. So both coaching staffs did a great job. I feel like the focus should be on these GMs and why their depth chart seems to look that way at certain positions. Now, I know Bill Belichick is technically the GM in New England or may call the shots there. Pittsburgh has someone in that role, but I think that's where the focus should be. Now, the coaches can say, hey, we're supposed to coach what you put out there on the field, what you give us to coach. But I thought tonight both coaches' staff did a great job of getting their guys ready to play, getting the guys fight through adversity, coming back in that ball game, giving them a chance to win late in the ball game. So I had no issues with what both coaches did tonight.
Mac, what comes to mind for you when you see Coach Tiaman, who you know well, trying to get an effort out of his team that just might not be there?
Frustration. One thing I know about Coach Tomlin, he really put an emphasis on ball games you're supposed to win. And for the second straight week in a row, I understand this is the NFL where the narrative is always changing. You can't predict, or you don't know what you're going to see. And that's why we love this game so much. But we would all agree there are certain games that certain teams should win. Last week, playing against the Arizona Cardinals, only 2 wins. You're supposed to find a way to win that ball game, especially at home. This week, the same thing, playing against a lesser team than Arizona because of the inexperience they have at the quarterback position. You're supposed to find a way to win those ball games because that's what separates teams that get into the playoffs compared to teams that do not get into the playoffs. And watching him on the sideline, it's almost like he didn't really have an answer outside of the frustration that he was feeling because, heck, as Steeler fans, we felt the same frustration as well. So they still have a shot. Mathematically speaking, they're still in this thing. But if they're going to get into the postseason or make a significant run to get into the postseason, something has to change. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's 1 guy, 2 guys, 3 guys, or whatever the case may be. But the way we've been watching Pittsburgh perform, especially on the offensive side, something has to change. I don't know what needs to change because I'm not in the building. I'm right there with you guys watching from afar. But for them to change the outcome of their season, something has to change.
Mac, Emery, can't say thank you enough for the candor here in this conversation. But again, it is the Patriots with their 3rd win of the season. It comes over the Steelers, who do remain in the hunt. And don't forget, the conversation always continues, and, well, it's one that you're not going to want to miss. P2 and B-Mac sitting down with some of the biggest names in sports and entertainment. Sometimes it's just them sitting it down and figuring things out. You'll want to hear that one. Download, subscribe, and enjoy All Things Covered.